So hey true gardeners, welcome back. So today's video, I want to concentrate on 4 pretty common questions I've been getting on my videos the last couple weeks. You know, we're talking about the frost and some things that you can do, and I seem to be getting these questions, these same 4 questions in so many different ways. So I thought I'd make a quick Q&A video as my guys are taking lunch here. We're in the process of doing a small landscape project, and I wanted to just go over those things with you guys. So maybe I can clear the air with a few things. For questions that I seem to be getting are how and when to trim your palm trees, including your traveler's palms. So I'm going to kind of put up a diagram on the screen and share with you guys exactly how I'm going to trim my trees. The second question is, when do the liquid copper fungicide again? What's the time period? Should we do it? How often throughout the year should it be done? How, just a little bit more information on the frequency of that. And then the next question is Clusia. I know so many of you guys have Clusia like I do. How to trim them? Do you wait for the leaves to fall? Do you, what are the steps involved in doing that? And then the fourth question is, what made it through the frost like a champ? What are some plants and trees and some accent material that can be used to maybe patch into some of those areas that you guys have that are now going to be, bald areas in the garden. So some things that you can kind of feel pretty good knowing, it did super well in this last frost. So more than likely, no matter the temperatures that we're going to have in the future, that you can have some security that they're going to do super well there too. So I'm going to list those and put them on the screen too, so that way if you guys, hopefully it'll give you some ideas. These are things that also are going to be pretty readily available in the landscape world, unlike a lot of the things that we had been using throughout the years that are going to be a good deal of a shortage. I'm having trouble finding material. I know other landscapers are in that same boat, so it's going to be like that for, I would say, another year or two, unfortunately. But these are some things that made it through the frost, so more than likely they're going to be something that you can kind of get your hands on for filling into your garden. Okay, so for the first question, trimming your palm trees. So normally, in a normal situation, when you trim your palm trees, if you were to look at it like a clock, for instance, you'd want that silhouette, that canopy. You kind of want it at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. You want the hands there. So you'd want a nice rounded canopy. And that's always the goal when we're trimming our trees. You're kind of like looking back at it. And of course, you want to trim any brown or any lower leaves, but you don't want to over trim. So that's kind of the point of reference that we go by. In this particular case, you want to trim off everything that's brown. I know some people say leave a couple stalk or leave a couple fronds at the top, but they're really not supplying any benefit at this point. If it's past the frost, you guys know I'm going to be trimming all of my trees, towards the 3rd week to 4th week of March. So right in that time frame. So just a couple weeks, I'm going to kind of go at it and trim my trees. But if we're past the point of frost, there's no sense in keeping even the brown limbs on it. It just leaves things open for infection and fungus. So better to get every single bit of brown off of that tree. And you want to trim to the center of the tree, leaving about maybe 4 to 6 inches of like little stem left. You kind of want to just leave that there for the caliber, but you want to trim kind of nice and tight and close, not leave. I see trees on the highway with just the stalks left out, all the frond stalks left out, and then just the ends have been cut. And I've also seen trees where the whole top has been taken off. I thought that maybe initially that was just a collapse of trees, but it looks like they're actually cutting the tops of the tree off. So don't do that. You want to trim just the fronds themselves, and you want to leave about 4 to 6 inches of frond remaining, and then that way the tree is, you're not taking away the caliber, you're not cutting it too tight where you're stressing the tree. I see a lot of trees already being trimmed, and if that's you, I understand it's hard to look at right now, but right now you are protecting your trees from a future frost. So if you can leave those fronds on for a few more weeks, that is ideal. Right now, tree is realizing it has absolutely no energy. It knows it's not getting fed. So most of you guys are probably starting to see a new spear light coming out of the center of the tree. That's the tree forcing a new frond out. So that tree is going to push that frond out. And in just a few weeks, that frond's going to open up. So by the time you get in there to trim your tree, that frond has started to open up and producing energy. So you will have a single frond coming out of that tree, and you wouldn't have stressed the tree out in advance while that frond is opening up by taking those fronds off. So that's just kind of another reason to be patient and wait. Hopefully by that point, I'll have some fronds opened up by the 3rd, 4th week of March, and I feel comfortable about trimming all the rest of the fronds off of it. Now, if you have a traveler's palm, a lot of people, you've asked this question because the wind was just so aggressive during our storm. If you have a traveler's palm, more than likely they're broken or leaning over, split. The only time you want to trim everything off of that tree right now is if it's mushy. If it's mushy, if it smells, if any of your trees kind of have like that little bleeding, it looks like gels coming out of the bottom of the trunk, or out of the trunk, I mean, that's the only time that you want to attack it and remove everything at this point. Unfortunately, that usually means the death of the tree is happening. That's what you're seeing happen, the collapse on it. So you trimming it at this point won't hurt anything, you know, but I've seen trees do rebound, so it's amazing what they're capable of. But what you don't want is that infection to get. They'll get that bacterial infection in the inside of the tree, and so you want to prevent mushiness and that happening, because what'll happen is that they'll develop kind of a smell that the pests and the bugs absolutely love. They'll just feed towards that. They'll burrow inside, and they'll create babies, and you know, it's a whole kind of alien situation that you don't want your garden to have going on. So right now you want to do your very best to only trim what's mushy, and then just kind of leave everything else as it currently is. And that leads me to my next question, the question of when to do the liquid copper. Now, if many of you guys did the liquid copper right after the frost like I did, and kudos to you guys because you probably saved a lot of your material. So we just recently got another cold snap this past weekend because Florida loved to whiplash us this year for whatever reason. So we got a cold snap this year. Normally, and I said this in the previous video, that you don't want to overdo that product. You only want to do it when it's absolutely necessary. But it's usually always something I do after a cold snap. I don't do it directly after. You need it to warm up for a little while. So if we have a cold snap this weekend, give it a couple weeks. You can do it, 10 days to 2 weeks kind of thing when we're starting to get warm temperatures normalized. So if we have normal temperatures for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, then you can feel comfortable, doing spraying and treating your trees. I'm going to try to wait to trim my trees at the same time I do the liquid copper. So within just a few days of one another, because that's a great time to be able to get that liquid copper inside that center of the tree. When all the fronds are off, you're actually penetrating the center of the tree and then going down the base of the tree. So if you can wait for that same time period within a couple days of each other, then you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're removing any kind of damage around the tree, letting that new spear or that new frond come out of the middle of it, and then you're hitting it with some liquid copper. You're really bandaging that tree up for success right now. You're like, okay, now I'm giving you some time to recoup and recover without anything attacking you from the outside in. That's kind of my pattern of what I'm going to do. I am going to do a lighter dose of liquid copper. For me, that's like about a ½ ounce per gallon, maybe just a little bit under that. But follow whatever it is that it says on your pamphlet. All of the, there's so many different varieties out there, so follow what it says on there, measure that out, and put that on your tree. I use a backpack or a pull behind sprayer that has some pump in it, so it pushes it out really, really well. So on my taller palm trees, what I do is I step back and I have my mask on and I use a hat and sunglasses. And then I step back as far as I can, and then I do a push spray. So I just hit the button and it sprays kind of at an arc, and I overspray the tree so that way it lands and hits in that center the best that I can. I probably use a little bit more product than I naturally would, but the product is, I don't know, $30, $40, and my tree is, a lot more. So I don't mind it. So I'm kind of, just spraying and waiting for it to kind of just fall and kind of roll down the tree. That's how I do that with my taller palm trees. Or, I don't get on a ladder, but my guys will help and get on a ladder, and you can just pour it right on with a ladder or spray it right from a ladder. I know a lot of the questions are, if I have big trees, how do I do that? Those are really the only two ways I know how to do that, other than if that's not in your wheelhouse, and I completely understand if it's not, call a pest control company. Right now, they are treating trees with liquid copper. So call them if your trees are valuable, if your trees are sentimental to you, and it's worth it, a few $100s for them to come out and treat all your trees. It's definitely worth it instead of losing thousands throughout your landscape, because this is that much of a game changer for the health of your tree moving forward. So it's totally totally worth doing that. The next question is Clusia. So a lot of you guys are like myself, where you are a Clusia lover, and I hope that this storm doesn't deter you from getting Clusia. I love the look of Clusia. It did not handle the cold weather at all this year. It died in a lot of places, and it's going to struggle back in a lot of places. So my backyard has Clusia that go about 100 foot to the rear side of my house, my back buffer line, and then it goes up the side some. So I have a lot of Clusia in the back that I'm going to end up losing around 4 foot, maybe 5 foot from the top down on it. So it's going to be a much shorter hedge going back, but I think it's going to be fine. My front yard did not fare nearly as well. It just got the blunt of it. So more than likely, I'm going to have to go all the way down to the ground with that if I don't opt to go a different way. And I might for the front yard for the future. I'm still tossing that up, but we'll kind of see. Because, you know, even with some of the other shrubs and hedges, there's pros and cons to all of them. You know, Clusia may not handle the cold as well, but they fight back against pests. They have no pest issues hardly at all. And they just have a lot of other benefits that I'm kind of not, you know, I'm not sold on some of the other materials. So it's going to be going to kind of weigh things out as we move forward. But in the back, I'm definitely going to go back with Clusia in areas that I have to. In the front, I'm going to probably replace, I think. When you do trimming of Clusia, so Clusia die in like stages during a cold snap. So you can see that first night, you know, we probably lost, you know, a good foot and a half of Clusia at that top. That whole top section is going to freeze back and die. And then every night that it got cold, for us, it was about 4 nights. So it pretty much took gaps out of that my perimeter wall of my Clusia over those 4 nights. That's kind of how they do. They not just connect at the top like a wall because they create a perfect buffer perimeter wall, but they also connect at the bottom. So a lot of them really rely on each other for support. So you'll notice that the two next to each other probably did really, really bad. And then maybe the ones that are a little more separated on the corners may have done a little bit better. So what I plan to do with my Clusia, especially in the back, is you guys know that you can do the scratch test and see what's green and what's brown. When you're scratching the individual stems, if it's still green there, even if every leaf on that stem is brown, the stem itself is alive. It will produce new leaves. So you can stop there and only trim to where the green meets the brown. The brown will be, you know, it'll be brown, and then more than likely it'll either be soggy or it'll be dried off, and you can almost clip it off, and you know that's never coming back. And that goes for just about every plant grouping that you're going to see. You're going to do the scratch test and kind of see where if it's brown, 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 as you go down, you're going to start seeing a little bit of green. Now you know that's your starting point. That's where you're going to trim, and everything above that is going to come off. So that's going to be your new level. With Clusia, I know a lot of people are asking, do you wait till the leaves fall off before you trim? No, they will hold on for a long period of time. So if we're going to get consistent warm weather, go ahead and trim. So 3rd, 4th week of March, you can go ahead and start the process of trimming. If you guys want to wait until, you know, last week of March, mid-season of April, that's perfectly fine. You know, you're still in that range. I'll probably be trimming all the way up until May and June because it's going to take some time to really kind of get some of my material back. So patience is a virtue in this particular situation. Now on how to trim them. Now, of course, you know, I'm going to use hand loppers. You don't want to use shears. You don't want to use hedge trimmers at this point because you don't want to do any more damage to any leaves that are alive. So go ahead through your Clusia and find whatever point is that you want to start working with your whole hedge. If it's one plant, then of course you can trim out just sections. It will fill back out. It will take some time, but it'll fill back out. If it is like my garden where it is a row of 70 or 80 of them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the most common area where the green meets brown, and then I'm going to trim them all to that level because I really like a wall type of effect. I really like a dense planting, and they grow so darn fast that I don't want a gappy grouping because they rely on each other so much for support. You'll see them when they're newly planted, they're kind of wonky like this, and then once they connect together, now they're very steadfast. They're very vertical, very upright, and very tight because they've connected under the ground and connected above the ground, and they become that perfect wall that we see. But in the beginning, it takes them some time to do that. So I'm going to take all my Clusia down to wherever the majority show that the green meets the brown, and then they're all going to be that size. That way I can know they're all going to grow unanimously together and become that wall, that steadfast wall that I'm looking for. So I think that's really, really important to do. Don't fertilize right now. I know that it's everybody thinks frost that, you know, if I'm gonna trim, I should go ahead and fertilize. Hold off. I'm gonna start fertilizing in May, probably June time period. I'm probably not going to do anything until then. You need consistent levels of warmth. Right now it's just too up and down. So I'm probably going to wait a little bit of time, and I'm going to wait and make sure everything is kind of trimmed back before I hit that. That is just my goal. I think everybody has kind of a different opinion on that. I'm trying to reduce the amount of stress. So just kind of think about it if you're sick. You don't want to do everything all at once if you have the flu. You know, you don't want to eat the soup, and you don't want to go for a walk, you don't want to get fresh air. You don't want to do all of that stuff all at once. So I'm going to piecemeal and really baby my garden. I'm going to hit it with liquid copper when I need to. I'm going to wait a few weeks and then hit it with a pesticide treatment if I need to. And then I'm going to wait and trim everything. And then I'm going to give it a couple weeks, and then I'm going to hit it again with maybe liquid copper. And hopefully that'll be the end of the liquid copper, unless we get massive rains coming our way during a different time of the season, which could happen. So, you know, you don't want to do everything all at once. So trim, wait, treat, wait, fertilize. So on average for Florida, because things do grow super fast, when I say wait, it could be just 2 weeks, it could be 1 month, but there's no real rush to do any of these things. You definitely want to get a good dose of regular fertilizing on things. So if you start fertilizing, make sure whatever the date that you start, that every 90 days you're hitting it. You're hitting it every single season with fertilizer to get things going. And I'll do a video when we do ours, so that way that you can kind of see what, you know, just what that process is. Okay, and for question 4, plants or trees that handled the frost like a champ, the things that came out just like VIP status. You know, if you've got, you're gonna have some empty spots in your garden, just like I do, and you're probably thinking like, okay, first, what's gonna be available in the farms? There's not gonna be a lot of tropicals right now. I've gone to many nurseries trying to find material to substitute for projects that I had before the frost scheduled, and like trying to find some things that are gonna, you know, give me some good alternatives. And there is not a lot of material available. And so be patient with your nurseries, you guys. They are cutting back and doing all the necessary things and trying to order from down south. Even Miami got frost, which is crazy. So we're going as far as Homestead to get a lot of this material, and so is everybody else. So it can be very challenging coming up in the landscape world. So be patient with your landscaper, be patient with your garden centers, because it's going to take some time. So I wanted to list some things that came through like a champ during this frost. That way, this might be something that's more readily available for you guys to start patching things back into your garden. I jotted them down. I'll stick some pictures on the screen of some things that maybe aren't as familiar, so that way you guys kind of have a good look at something. Copernicia falensis, I have one in my garden. It did take some burn, but it did fine. I didn't have it covered. It did great. All of these plants that I'm going to mention are plants that weren't covered that did really well. Bismarck palms, I know up north you guys had some damage on them that I saw, but a lot of the gardens that I just went through were projects that I've done did really well. The Bismarcks did. Queen palms, again, up north I know you had some damage, but here great. European fan palms. I mean, if there was a VIP to this frost, it would be the European fan palms and Chinese fan palms. Those guys did fabulous during the frost. So like every nursery that I go to, it's like bronze, brown, light brown, bronze, green. That's the European fan palms, and then it happens again, and then it's Chinese fan palms. So it's not, they did really well. They're like, what frost? No frost. Washingtonia palms. Sugar palms was a surprise for me. Sugar palms did really well during the frost. If you have areca palms that really did bad, sugar palms are a great substitute for that. They do not grow as fast, but they do get chunkier and fatter. They need a little bit more room than the verticalness of areca palms, but they are a beautiful, like a blockage. If you need one area to block really well, you can put a nice chunky sugar palm there and it'll do a nice job. It's a nice multi-trunk palm that grows very slow. If you want something more vertical, fishtail palms did really well during the frost. Normally, if it were just a temperature drop, they would have done much better. Those of you guys who are in our zone and you lost, or not lost fishtail, but you got a lot of brown on fishtail palms, a lot of that is wind burned. That wind just cut right through them. They're real thick, dense, clumping tree. So that wind, you know, it really did a number on some of the fishtail palms, but it more than likely did not kill the tree. It just, you know, beat it up a little bit, and they'll pop back because they're really a tough tree, but they can handle the lower temperatures. Alfredi palm, you guys know how I love the cold coconut palm, high plateau cold coconut. It's a great tree to incorporate. You can start it in really young, and it does grow very slow. It gives you that palm frond look that a lot of people like. A lot of these other palm trees that I've mentioned have more of that individual windmill look, like these palmettos that are behind me that you guys might see, or sable palms. They kind of have all that same kind of look that are, you know, more maintenance because you do have to hand trim those, all of those. So the Alfredi palm is also one you have to hand trim. It is not self-cleaning like a King Alexander or a Royal or a Foxtail, or it's not like that. So there's pros and cons to all of these trees, you know, when it comes down to it. Sable palm, Coppernicia alba, pygmy date palms did much better than I expected them to do during those temperatures into the 20s. Mine did not miss a beat. It's matured. It did really well. Pindo palms did fantastic, and they're meant for that. Mule palms did pretty well. They're a cross between a Pindo and a Queen, so it has the capabilities of handling some of those low temperatures. Sylvester palms did really well, and they kind of have that nice sprawling effect to them. They have some other downfalls, so do your research when you're looking into these, and that's kind of what I mean. You know, I'm getting a lot of questions like, you know, I want to go back with, you know, cold tolerant material, and I meet with clients, you know, on that particular conversation, and I show them the pictures and I tell them what's involved with that, and you know, because I try to educate everybody. This is not just a template that I put onto every single project. This, everything I do is custom to every specific yard and every specific personality. So also I'll explain to them, okay, so it does handle the cold well, but it has this situation, this one. So you kind of have to weigh those pros and cons. So definitely get educated before you start popping these guys in the garden thinking that this is going to be a ready-made situation and you're not going to have to worry about this ever again. It is you're going to balance that out. So, all right, you guys, I think my guys are about ready for me now. And so that is the end of our Q&A for today. Thank you so much and for joining me for this half-hour time period. And I really hope that these questions got answered, and I will see you guys in the very next video. Take care, tree gardeners.